We have our main guest, and we're very proud to present him to you, Professor Martin Andree, but he has to return back to Cologne this night, so his time will be short. He will be, but if we keep on the time, then he still can stay for one beer, and and then he has to go to the train station. On behalf of the NVA, the Dutch Federation of Journalists, we're very proud that Professor Martin Andree is here to tell his story. And it's also nice to see that the man who made him famous here in the lowlands, Jurt IJsvogel, who gave the interview in NRC, I think in September, is also here. Because they did the interview, I think, online. So it's nice that you're also here, Jurt, because you brought us to this special guest. Erik van Heeswijk will be the moderator tonight, this afternoon. He will give a quick introduction, but for the people who don't know Erik van Heeswijk, he used to be part of our board, of the NVA board back early in the 2000s. Back in the days, he's now, and further he was the editor-in-chief on VPRO Digital, and so he was working as a journalist, but he's not working as a journalist anymore. He's now a startup called Smart Octo, and perhaps some of you know him because he's advising editing rooms about how they can move on the digital scale and how they can be seen. We're very happy that you will moderate this afternoon. But first, I'll give you the floor, and now we'll have one round of applause for the fact that we're here with Martin Andree and with Erik van Heeswijk.
Yeah, so this is like a public gathering. It will be in English. As Thomas said, that's who I am, right? I'm I specialize in digital. I feel like a journalist, but I haven't written a really good piece in a very long time. But yeah, digital always has my passion. That's also why I like being in a discussion with Mr. Andree. Yeah, I will give him the floor first. I will ask him some questions. Well, I'll open the floor later on as well. So let's make it a bit dynamic. I hope that you will shout out all kinds of comments and cheers, and let's make this a fun adventure. But first of all, Mr. Andree, the floor is on you.
Thanks very much. So let's start the evening with a true beginning. Let's look in the year 1989. Tim Berners-Lee invents the World Wide Web, and this is a nice starting point for us because on that day, what we could call analog media, like TV, radio, newspapers, at that day had 100-time usage share of the entire media system. And we know what is happening since then. The digital media are, of course, substituting the analog media, which, by the way, is not a problem at all. We'll see later where the problem is. The first interesting question, of course, is to ask when is the point when the digital media have somehow overtaken analog media? And I think there's a quite interesting indicator for that. It's to look at ad spend, because where do advertisers spend money? Typically where you have the attention. And it's quite interesting that the COVID pandemic was the background when, for the first time, advertisers spent more money in digital media than in all analog media types combined. And as they, of course, go where the attention is, we have good reasons to think that now the digital media are ahead. So I'm a media scientist. Of course, I can say I'm blessed to live in these days, because media scientists look at what do media changes cause in terms of effects for society, for politics, for democracy, and so on. And I witness one of the biggest media transformations and media revolutions in the history of mankind. So if we would ask the question in a very simple way, of course, we know that this transformation is going to continue. So let's ask the question how a purely digital world would look like. So in order to find out, you would normally say it's very easy, because we would just have to see what's right now going on in the digital world. If we, let's say, we do this experiment, we turn off television, there's no more television, no more radio, no more newspapers, we have only digital media. What's happening now in digital media? It's a simple question, but it's very hard to give a sound scientific answer on this for several reasons. First of all, you know that in terms of just offers, in the past we had maybe dozens or hundreds of papers or programs, television programs, but the problem is in the digital world that we have here 16 million different offers, different websites, different apps that we would have to investigate, 16 million. If I would now take out people here from the audience, I would surely find out that you are digitally active on several devices. So you will have smartphones, you will have laptops, desktops, you will have tablets, and so on and so on. So in order to find out, I would have to look at what is being done on each end device. I would have to measure this by the second, every second, count till you stop. I would have to bring this together through all devices that are being used, aggregate it, and then I would have to allocate this to 16 million offers. Just to give you an impression that even if you are not, let's say, mastering digital science, you can imagine it's quite a task. And probably this is the reason why I'm here. And of course, I'm also a little bit proud that we managed to do exactly this for the first time. It's, to my knowledge, the only worldwide existing baseline measurement of a full country for digital media usage. So I can show you one thing that you can only get from me and from nobody else. And for me it's so important, I could do my entire presentation only with this one diagram. I want you to understand it 100%, and that's why I will build this together with you. So I will start with the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. So on the vertical axis you will see the aggregated usage time that one offer attracts in 1 month, okay? And then you will see here on the horizontal axis, you will see, you know, it's basically a ranking. The strongest one will be on the left, and you can already imagine which ones will be the strongest ones. But I have promised you that you get a diagram of the entire usage, not just the top 10 ranking or something like this, right? So I will deliver on my promise. I will open up the horizontal axis, okay? And now, on the next click, you will see the distribution of the entire traffic through all devices for a full country, which is here Germany. So I will are you a little bit excited now? Yeah? So I will click 3, 2, 1, and I'm clicking now. And you might understand why I needed to learn how to present it this way, because when I started to do this presentation, the people would say, I can't see the line. I can't see the line, and it's very simple. Your eyes are doing perfectly well. Also, this clicker is working. You can't see the line for a very simple reason, that basically the line is exactly on the vertical axis and on the horizontal axis, and we do not have to now make a PhD in statistics to understand. We have a few who have everything and everyone else has nothing. We have monopolies and a graveyard. So it's as easy as that. So the nice thing is, as we now for the first time have measured the full traffic in a full country, we can do one more thing. We can quantify scientifically the concentration. And you might know the KPI that is used for this. You might know the KPI from economics. It is used, for instance, to calculate the equality or inequality of income, or for instance of wealth. So let me explain this to you. You do this with the so-called Gini coefficient. Don't worry, I'll explain. So let's imagine, you imagine please, a country where you have, let's say, the ideal type of communism. That means every person has exactly the same wealth. We have a Gini coefficient of 0. Wow, there's very clever people here. And let's take the example that there's one person in this country who has everything and everyone else has nothing. That's the biggest imaginable inequality, right? Cannot be more unequal. We have a Gini coefficient of 1. As we now calculated the entire traffic, we can calculate also the Gini coefficient for the distribution of traffic in the internet, and it is at 0.988. By the way, if you follow what I have been doing before, you can imagine that I was doing this entire study and spent like 10 years on this, of course, in order to prove concentration. But first, when I calculated this, I thought, by the way, it is a mistake. And we calculated this like a dozen times, and it is what it is. So I could now, if you now would go through this atlas, you can now see this inequality in all the different digital markets. I will not spend too much time here. What we're going to do is, by the way, we're going to go into several markets, and basically, in order to show it, I will zoom in the first kind of millimeter that you see here, because we're going to see now the strongest, the best of the best of the best offers of several categories. I will start with the category that's probably the closest to you, which is the, let's say, digital publishers. It's typically the prolongations of what was before newspapers. So we'll look at the situation in Germany. So you can see here the best of the best of the best. By the way, now that I zoomed into this, you can see that this graveyard is somehow starting already at rank 12. And you can see, if I take an example, for instance, Spiegel, one of the most successful digital offers, you can already see, yeah, if we would look at details, you would see a net reach of nearly 50%. So a lot of people are using it, but the problem is the usage time. It doesn't attract enough usage time, and that's why it's already there where it is. And that is one of the best that we have. So if we would now look at this whole situation from the perspective of the year 2000, people would have said, well, that's not a problem, because this is just the nature of innovation and disruption, right? Because, to put it in a provocative manner, these old media companies, they have to go away anyways. They will be disrupted by new business models, which at the time was the bloggers, the citizen journalism, and so on and so on. So we have put together thousands of all these independent domains and have checked, so how are they doing? And the sad thing is, didn't work either, we can say, because you can see that I'm now going even much deeper into this metaphorical graveyard. Even if you, for instance, see Netzpolitik here at 7, you can basically say there's hardly any traffic on these offers. Now, we could say, okay, why does this not work out? So we could say maybe these bloggers at the time, they were very idealist, they were not so commercial, they didn't have enough money, they maybe didn't have not the really cool agencies, you know, who told them how to do this right. So we looked at one field that had all of that. A lot of money, really seriously, billions of euros, a lot of persistence, the best agencies in the world, and that is brand companies. And this is an interesting case. Why? Because the brand companies looked at the internet in the year 2000 and they said, wow, this is fantastic, because all the traffic that I get on my own domains is for free. It's free advertising. So what they did is they got the domains for their brands. They're in touch with millions of people anyways every day. So if I have Coca-Cola, I get coca-cola.com. I link to coca-cola.com. And I put, and by the way, you know this as journalists, I put lots of contents out there for free because I can track the usage time of the users. By the way, making competition with journalism, but this is another topic. Yeah, because that's free advertising. And I can tell you that all these big brands have spent in the last 20, 25 years 3-digit million euro amounts on this. And so we put, again, together the best of the best of the best to see where are they at. Didn't work either, yeah? So I mean, it's actually a joke if you look at this, because it's so low in significance. So I will show one more market. As I say in the book, you can even go through many more markets. You would have to, that's the, let's say, at least the calming thing. It's not, it's the case for everyone. Yeah. We'll look at the public service broadcasting in Germany. I think here also we have this dual system. So I can tell you that in the analog video world, TV, the public service broadcasting makes about 50% of the usage time. So I looked at, okay, let's see all the content that is in the digital world on the domains of the public service broadcasting, and you see they cannot do it either. What we also did is we calculated the total amount of digital video, and we put it into relation of the entire video duration that we have digital, and we can say it's 4%. So that means also, if you just make the experiment, if you turn off television, radio, newspapers, and so on, if all that is gone, you would have only 4% video share in Germany of public service broadcasting. So I will exaggerate a little bit. Under digital conditions, it's gone. We don't have a dual system anymore. By the way, it doesn't matter whether there's people producing content, putting it out there, because it is not used. Yeah? So now I'm coming to a point where it is time for you to start thinking. Because you will have seen, okay, I can go through any kind of category and I see always the same picture. Monopolies, graveyard. Then you should go on and think very hard, because you will say, it's just Germany. But wait a minute, it's the same in the Netherlands, it's the same in Belgium, it's the same in every other European country, it's the same in Canada, it's the same in Australia, it's the same in the US. That's very strange, that nobody can somehow make it. Are they all stupid? And I always say, maybe the explanation here is not so difficult. If it looks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it smells like a duck, yeah? Maybe it's a duck, yeah? Because we don't have free markets, we don't have open markets, we don't have any more competition in the digital world. Competition for me looks like this. If you have a 100-meter race, all of these runners start at the same point. But if we have these digital markets, the platforms are allowed, metaphorically speaking, to run every race starting at meter 80 or 90. And that is why you will always lose, even if you say, I could have worked harder, I could have digitized earlier, I could have done this better. Yeah, so what we the journalists try to even, make themselves responsible. And what for me is also quite interesting is that scientifically we know exactly how competition was eliminated. So some of these, it's all in this book. You can, in the book there's even more than these 6. So first of all, you have, by the way, you can all have it for free digital. Yeah, you don't, but of course you can take pictures. Yeah, we have network effects. Yeah, so this, the attractiveness of a product is getting the bigger the more people use it. The second is closed standards. Maybe the opposite also. open standards. Open standards is, for instance, email. You can share the content of emails completely independent of the company. It can be even, let's say, from big tech, Gmail. You can have in Germany web.de, GMX, you can have Yahoo. It does not matter because it's an open standard. All companies use the same open standard. But if you establish closed standards, it's kind of you're building a wall around your platform. You cannot share the content anymore to the outside world. Why are they doing this? Of course, on purpose, because they want to keep the traffic inside the platform. The next point, you journalists know this best. Let's put it as an example. You write a wonderful article, then you put it out there on Instagram. I read it as a reader, then I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I start to go like, you know that I can't read it. Then I read this thing, link in bio, so 3-4 steps, I'm ending up in the bio, then I open this up, and even if I then see the article, then I think, now I left Instagram, but it's a fiction. You're still inside the in-app browser of Instagram. It's like a supermarket that doesn't have any exits. Yeah, so you always get like deeper into the supermarket. It's like they stop the exit. You can't get out. Yeah. So by the way, it's also interesting. It would be illegal for supermarkets, but for the digital world, we don't seem to care. So point 4 and 5 again are masterpieces of our own wrong regulation, because first of all, the platforms are happy because they get all this content for free, and then we have said from a regulatory perspective, okay, you get everything for free, then for that on top we say you don't have to be liable. I mean, that was super clever to say that. You guys pay typically, and on top of that, you know, because you pay the salaries for the journalists, you are on top punished because you're fully liable. It's crazy. The last thing is maybe the most, let's say, dramatic one. It's what I would call plainly monopoly abuse. And it's quite interesting that we could also scientifically prove this on a very broad empirical basis. So you see here these beautiful GIFI analysis for the different big tech empires, and I will explain this to you on the basis of the one that you see on the very left, which is the example of Alphabet. Do you see this little bubble in the middle? It's the Google search engine that all of you know because it's very important for your journalistic content. So we can not only measure the aggregated time that people are spending on the different offers, but we can measure how where are the people going after they leave Google, okay, as an example. And then, of course, we could assume that normally, under normal conditions, we would expect a kind of fair share. So people who are ending on Alphabet on Alphabet offers from the same company, we would assume it should be the same share that Alphabet achieves in the entire digital usage, no? But if we measure, we see that the share of the people who are ending up on Alphabet offers is twice as high as we would expect it. Twice as high. Not 5% more, you know, why? Of course, they are just giving the traffic to themselves. They are self-preferencing, and they are not doing it a little bit, not 5% more or 10% more, they double it. Which means if you are out there with your journalistic content, you will never have the chance of achieving the share that you would deserve by the attractiveness of your content, because they will just serve it to themselves. So, the free internet is dead. The free internet is something that looked like conceptually what we see on the left-hand side. It was supposed to be democratic. It was supposed to be the same for everyone. And what we are seeing is that, of course, the internet still exists, but through the mechanics that I've just shown to you, the platforms have managed to empty the internet of traffic. There's no more traffic in the internet. Now all the traffic is sucked into these traffic silos of the platforms, and in the internet there's hardly any traffic left. So, by the way, funny remark, by the way, it's all not really funny. I try to present this in a funny way, but it's of course not funny. But a funny thing maybe is that when people sometimes say, oh, you invited Martin Andree, this guy is so dystopian. Sorry, I have to say not really, because a dystopia would be something that's in 20 or 40 years. Yeah, what you see here is status quo. This is reality. This is where we are now at, and it's not an opinion, it's just mathematics. But of course, we can now, based on data, we can look in the future. And if we look in the future, we'll see that this, of course, is going to continue. So depending on statistics, the digital usage will be going up to 65 to 75 by the end of the decade. And we know that here the traffic is mainly in the platforms. So what are the consequences? The consequences are, first of all, that the editorial media lose their financial basis. And I mean, this is what we are seeing everywhere since decades. On the right-hand side, again, this is not a dystopia, this is something that is the case right now. In the digital world, 80 to 90% of the ad spend goes to the top monopolists, and everyone else, that's thousands of media companies, have to live with the remaining 10 to 20%. The second consequence is, and that's of course very, very dramatic for our democracy, the monopolists decide what information the people are watching. They are controlling complete types of media. They are controlling fully what you see. So if people sometimes ask me, why do you do all these presentations, I can always say again and again, because I'm super concerned as a media scientist, because it's very obvious that we are losing free media on a very fundamental level. Not a little bit here or something that we can optimize or so. We are fundamentally losing free media, because under the conditions of monopolies, we do not have independent media anymore. Of course, we do not have provider pluralism anymore. We do not, I mean, these are the same companies that keep the data of our governments in their cloud. I mean, it's, if you think about it, it's the same companies that consult our governments on cybersecurity, so there's no more independence from the state. And we are losing journalism. And it doesn't matter if journalism is privately funded or if it's publicly funded, because you have seen that they govern visibility, and that also public service, even if they are more happy if they're getting the state funding, they are not visible. And it's completely obvious that this is anti-constitutional. I can only say, for instance, in Germany, it is media monopolies are anti-constitutional. You cannot have one company owning 90% of television. It is anti-constitutional. So, up to this point, most of the argumentation that I delivered to you is new for most people. But now you have to do one more thing. You have to put everything on top that we are discussing publicly. And we are discussing a lot, like the topics that we're discussing, like what are they doing? Tax avoidance, hate speech, fake news, data surveillance, cooperation with US Secret Services, manipulation and blackmailing of journalism and science, intentional violations of law, precarious working conditions, manipulation of elections, and so on and so on. Please put all of this on top. That's what you know anyways. So that I always ask the question, like, how is this even possible? Like, how is it possible that we do not get it? Yeah, and my explanation is that we have this wonderful ideology of the internet, and I will show you how this works. Yeah, because if we ask the people who are owning the platforms, we can luckily be very relaxed, because they will tell us that we are completely wrong. They don't care so much about money, wealth, power accumulation. They don't care so much. They want to create a better world. They want to, they want to create a better world, yeah. they want to be doing more good for us. They give all of this for free to us. They care about freedom of speech. It's just open platforms, open communities. Come in with your friends and family and be creative. Yeah, it's all about our wonderful, don't you want to be part of our wonderful community? We just want to give you a voice. It's about transparency and so on and so on. And we have heard this talk now for 20 years. And if we think about like, oh, this is so nice, you know, like that they want to give us this better world for free. And by the way, you now have to look at, can you please do me a favor and you meditate on this unequal distribution line? Okay, do you have it? It's a sharing economy. It's a sharing economy that we want to build for a better world, and it's completely obvious that it's a complete masquerade, but for some reason we are not able to get it. As I now have the honor to talk in front of journalists, I will show you as a kind of bonus track a little case study that we did, because you have seen now the baseline measurement, but what we also did is that we went into one media type. It's a local newspaper, and I will show you what was coming up. Because this newspaper, of course, faces the same problem as everyone in journalism. So you better don't bet on the analog media, right? Because the circulation is going down. You know that the only way you're going to survive is in the digital world. But then you have the big problem in the digital world. Yeah, where's the money coming from? Because typically you made more money on analog media. You can have content on own domain, social media. You can hardly make any money. Then now you have zero-click content, which you know when Google puts already together everything, and finally now you're going to have ChatGPT in the future. So now let's look at this newspaper. What they did. So as every newspaper, they of course create a funnel through which they want to attract new users. At the bottom of the funnel, as you all know, you have the conversion. That would be someone, for instance, going for a subscription. And we did a case study with them and we analyzed everything. They disclosed the data to us and we did this analysis for them. So now check out, as I say, this newspaper, who I think was very ambitious in terms of digital media, because they have a Facebook page with 90,000 followers. They have 52,000 followers on Instagram, 15,000 followers on X. They have their own web, and of course they have their own website. And now look at what they did. So they wrote 39 Facebook posts. They wrote 18 Instagram posts, 37 posts on X, 27 push news, and altogether they wrote 167 website articles with altogether 50,000 views. And all of this is the equivalent for one subscription. And I don't have to tell you what you get for one subscription for a local regional newspaper. So, of course, maybe we just did the study on a very bad example, even though I would say from all the stuff that they did, it's not wrong what they did, yeah? But even if you get, let's say, 10 times out of it or 20 times out of it, it's also even not enough to die. So that means you can't go back to the analog world, yeah? If you work digital, the danger is that basically you work for free or you are dependent on the platforms, yeah? And you know maybe this problem that Cory Doctorow has called choke point monopolies. Choke point is a very nice metaphor because the problem is that for all of the content creators, you have to go through the choke points. The money is made on the choke points. It's not made by the creators anymore. And basically, you can only reach your audience through the choke points. And then what is the result? I would call it the Hunger Games. You know this movie. You have the platforms who get all the money, and the rest of the world is suffering. because then we have digital journalism dependent in two ways. First of all, it is of course dependent in terms of the algorithms. Journalism has to adapt the content to the algorithms, link structures, traffic flow, and so on, and also financially. And now we have to put generative AI on top, and then we have to consider that, of course, for the future, the better train models, the more data you have. We gave the platforms all the data. They have the full usage rights for all text, pictures, videos that we ever uploaded. And then there's one element that I'm even missing in the current discussion, what of course the platforms can do in 5 or 10 years. For each person here in the room, they have the entire viewing and clicking history. So they know that, let's say, you click more on green posts, you click more on red posts. They know how to, what are the kind of cliffhangers that you like, and so on and so on. So why should platforms not even personalize content dependent on, matching the content with the viewing history? So, if my calculations are right, I'm now at a point in my presentation where the state of your depression must have reached kind of the maximum. Can that be? Yeah. So, but if you might be surprised because I have a happy end for you. So, because what we didn't talk about is how we can solve the problem. And the one good news is we have problems in the world that are very hard to solve. I give you examples for these problems. Climate change, we must solve it. It's very hard to solve. We need a lot of money to solve it. We have to work together globally. It's hard to solve this problem. Or I give you another example, Ukraine war. Maybe many people have to sacrifice their lives to solve this problem. And here we have a problem. It costs €0 to solve it, 0. Nobody has to die or break a leg or sprain an ankle. We don't have to even endanger ourselves. It's completely easy. So let's just imagine we do the following 5 things. So, 1, what are we going to do? We are going to say, if you guys are platforms, you have to open up the outlinks. You can never discriminate creators in terms of outlinks. You have to always allow a seamless move outwards of the platform. You are also not allowed anymore to do what you currently do if posts have links that you dim them down so that then they are not visible anymore. So platforms have to be open. Yeah, that's the first rule. Never free the outlinks. The second point, open standards. It's like, for me, even tragic as a scientist to see in the markets where we have open standards, we have competition. In Germany, for instance, we have very strong competitors on the level of email where we have open standards. Why not say open standards? We basically decrease the value of the platforms. It doesn't even matter so much on which platforms you post something, and you give content a chance. Third point, we separate infrastructure and content. So you know this from the Hollywood studio system, for instance, when in the 40s, 50s in the USA, the Hollywood studios, they didn't have only the full control on the movies, but they also owned a big part of the movie theaters, the cinemas. At that time, it was a ridiculously small problem if you compare it to the massive problem that we have now. It was said, we cannot have that. We cannot have control on both. So let's just imagine we would separate infrastructure and content. And that is the best starting point, because then we could say there are certain media types which are relevant for democracy, for instance, search engines, for instance, video, for instance, social media. And in these categories, we cannot accept monopolies, not at all. We should have a 30% market share cap. And where we have monopolistic players, we will force these players to open up so that they can, for instance, syndicate their infrastructures for third-party offerings. It's not a problem. And by the way, these methods are also success proven. And the last point, up to today, we allow platforms to make money with criminal content. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's not small things that we are talking about here. You can still make money with racism, with discrimination, with the denial of Holocaust and all kinds of things. So why don't we say, if you make money with specific content, you are liable. We do not impact at all freedom of speech, but once you gain money from content, you also have to take the liability. And if I look at these 5 measures and I wonder, is this something like completely crazy? I'm thinking like, maybe not, we could do it easily. Because right now, what's also maybe interesting for you as journalists, because I speak to very many different, let's say, parts of society, the problem is the same for all. It does not matter whether you are a publishing house, whether you are a newspaper, whether you're a radio station, whether you're public broadcasting or private broadcasting, whether you are a startup, whether you are, let's say, even you know, producing goods, because if you then you have the same problem with Amazon. Yeah, it's the same for all fields in society, because basically you have 2 strategic options. No matter what you try to do, you have 2 ways that you can go. The first way that you can go is you go left. That's what most people do. You go where the traffic is. We have to go where the young people are. We have to. Where are you going? You're going into the platforms. If you're going into the platforms, under normal conditions, you work for free. Yeah, you do all of this work for free. Yeah, and by the way, it's the same for the people who are doing it on Amazon. The 1/3 of manufacturers are not making any money anymore with Amazon. Yeah, just that you understand, it's the structural problem is the same. So if then you say, I'm not gonna work for free for the platforms, what is your other choice? You will say, I will do it independently. I will have my own domain. Or the manufacturers will say, I have my own web shop. And where are you going? You go down. You put yourself in the graveyard, because, yeah, of course, you can do it independently, but there's no traffic there. Yeah. So you can also, by the way, change strategy. You can first go left and then down, or you can go both ways. But I hope that it's clear that either way that you go, big tech runs the machine room. So they can basically, they decide the name of the game, and we cannot win this game as long as they are in charge. So do we want to put up with this? What do we want to explain to our children in 10, 20 years? Children of us who might ask us, hey, daddy or mommy, you always said you are a digital expert. Did you guys not understand what's going on? Do we really want to put up with this? I have, let's say, I'm really concerned about what's going on. I have written this book, which is rather untypical for a scientist. What is really crazy for me, it was finished in April 23, so last year in spring. I predicted in the book that it is inevitable that this power of big tech would encroach on politics. I mean, for me, can you imagine? I mean, now what happened that Musk is now part of the US government, you know? I would have hoped that this prediction would take a little bit more time to materialize. And that's how fast this came to us. So I hope that we are all waking up before it's too late, because these guys are gonna act fast, I think. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Andree. Did we invite Andree? It's like he's so dystopian, right? No, thanks for also giving the solutions to the problem. Let me ask you a couple of questions, because I read your book. It was a pleasure, by the way, to read it in German as well. I even made notes with a pen, which is for a digital person is something, right? I enjoyed it. One question, because you said you did a lot of research in data on sort of the traffic and the attention time and stuff like that, right? Which is a very crucial point that the book begins with. How did you do that research, and were you expecting the results that you were in the end getting?
So, how do
yeah, just a little methodology. Let's be a bit nerdy about it.
It's fine. So, The first models I wrote on this was from the year 2020. So you might remember that in 2006 there was this guy called Chris Anderson. He wrote one of the biggest bestsellers ever written. It was called The Long Tail: Why the Future of Business is Selling Less of More. And it is basically the entire story about the Robin Hood internet, which would give to the poor and would take from the rich. And I was already skeptical at the time. So 2010, I wrote the first models. 2011, 12, I already tried to write like newspaper articles about it, but it was completely not taken seriously. Then I said, okay, I had not really good empirical proofs. The problem is, if you want to prove it, you have to do this full measurement.
Yes.
So how did I manage to do the full measurement? I realized that basically there's two companies in the world who have the data expertise to do this. They are the leading market research companies, and I set up the data models, and I approached one of them because it was like a little bit, I knew there was this Hubble Space Telescope. If I can use the Hubble Space Telescope, I could do this measurement. Then there was a research cooperation. I was granted access to the data on December 21st in 2019. It was like my Christmas present, and that was the basis of the data of the atlas.
And that's like a pixel on devices and stuff
Exactly,
like that.
yeah.
Okay. And were you
Because
expecting?
you couldn't this if you would the setup for this measurement only if we wanted to recreate it, I would say 15-20 million euro.
Yeah, that's why I'm
to
asking.
pay,
Right? It's something.
and you can't do this with university.
No,
funding
I was just asking. Yeah. And let's say, were you expecting the results? Because you were already a bit skeptic. I don't agree about your conclusion about long tail, but were you expecting something of that sort of line? And well, the title doesn't leave a lot of guessing, right? Big tech muss weg. Was that already something of a hunch?
So even if this will surprise you after looking at my title, as a scientist, you are always full of doubt.
Yep.
Yeah, so you have a hypothesis that it could be completely different, that it could not be the Robin Hood internet, but you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know for sure. So I can say, of course, I did it to prove concentration, but the extent of concentration I did not expect.
Okay. And that's, you were sure that, let's say, the people that you measured was like a complete sample of the German, you were saying yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say so.
Okay. Now the sort of the primary question
By the
that
way,
I have.
also maybe one thing that is interesting, the atlas contains about 10,000 data points on specific players in the market. I did not receive a single answer from out, because basically you publish their so they of course have the domain-specific data. So it's it's the problem that, of course, for instance, if I keep my own website, I know exactly the usage time that's people, the amount of people, how long they stay. So I did not receive also a single criticism, which would be very easy to do if you see, oh my God, you ridiculously underrepresented me.
Yeah, of course, but they don't know what is the rest, right? So it's hard for them to establish if they're underrepresented.
But for themselves, because it's like in the atlas, it's specified on company level. So if you are one of these companies and you think, oh my God, this is horrible, there's this crazy scientist and he claims that it's only such a short or such a low net reach, but our real net reach is much higher, you would definitely complain. Yeah,
but they have a problem saying stuff like on their reach or something like that, right? They don't normally respond to things like, maybe my reach is that, because they consider it competition-y sensitive or something like that.
No, I wouldn't say so. I would. By the way, I think it's the opposite. I can tell you that the type of reaction is more of an insult. that creates a contrary reaction. So I would think that if the opposite was true, and you know this yourself, it's very easy. It takes you 2 seconds or 5 seconds to find out how many unique users you have had on your domain. So if you find there's somebody publishing nonsensical data, you would with great pleasure say this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, maybe, but we have the data, by the way, as a company of 300 of these newsrooms. So so I'm aware of the data. But let's say what I wanted to ask you is, in how much is this book, which I consider, again, a joy to read, right? Is it a criticism of capitalism instead of just media environment? Because you can maybe have the same story about oil, for example, right? Oh my God, there are 4 oil companies in the world, they control everything. In how much would you say this is like a perk or a vice of capitalism, that the winner takes all, or a couple of winners takes all, instead of just this being, let's say, something that is in the digital sphere, like extremely so?
Okay, so I actually feel a little misunderstood then, because that is the big criticism also of my book, because you can realize I'm not a Marxist. I also am a digital entrepreneur. I'm all for free markets and competition, and even I would say I'm for capitalism. The criticism of the book is clearly that capitalism was stopped. So I think it's also wrong to say that this is hyper-capitalism or something. I think what we see here is complete feudalism. So I don't think that, because by the way, I hear this quite often, and there was one day, there was Murdoch, and so it's a little bit also, I would be very careful here, because first of all, we all probably don't like Murdoch. We think it's wrong. And I would not know that we have any market where, for instance, in search engines, Google has 90% of the entire usage. So I don't know any other market where, if you take the oil market, you say it's 4 companies, so if it's 20, 25, we have competition. I would also say that even if we have powerful players in all types of industries, and even if we have the most, I would say, let's say, if we say, oh, it's not a problem, I would say, even if we have, I mean, the Chicago school and these, I find this very bizarre that the economists from the Chicago say monopolies are not a problem. As long as the prices are low, it's not a problem. I would still hold against that. Maybe, if you guys think so, if I have a cookie monopoly, no problem, because I can then eat chocolate. But one field we can have never monopolies, and that's media. It is absolutely indiscussable, because the media, the plurality of providers in media is the basis of our democracy. So even if we have the most crazy arguments from the Chicago school, media are not cookies.
No, but of course, but I understand. No, I completely agree. 100% agree. I'm not arguing for monopolies, by the way. No, but let's say there is in the book, and it's a very activistic book, if I may say so, right? It's a very, let's say, angry book, and it's also, and I'm not saying that as it's angry, right? There's argument for change, but let's say, in the Netherlands, we have 4 media companies, the public broadcaster, you have DPG, Media House, and a couple of others that control maybe 80% of the market, right? That's even a point for the Association of Journalists because of tariffs and freelancers, stuff like that. The main thing that I found a bit remarkable in the book is that there's the tech giants that are monopolizing and sort of coming from a field of power, and that is a heavy contrasted in the book with, let's say, the open, plural media ecosystem where everybody has a fair chance and nothing, all is great. So that criticism of the tech giants that you had before, right? That they just bring it about that they're doing a great job, is actually something that you probably do in the book with media as well. How do you see that?
Yeah, I do this, and I have very good explanations why I do this. The key question in democracies must always be, in terms of media, the way that we have the media set up, is it democratically legitimized. So first of all, I don't like, as I say, these kind of arguments, but there was also Murdoch. If we don't like Murdoch, we can stop Murdoch, yeah? And why can we stop it? Because we live in democratic societies where we can change things, because we will define what's going on. The difference with the big tech media is that they are completely out of our control. They are run from the USA or from China. We have zero possibility of democratic legitimization. The algorithms, the structures are completely set by forces which are beyond our control. And that is, in my point of view, unacceptable. The democratic sphere, the democratic public must always be legitimized also democratically, and that's why I would never count the one against the other. And by the way, I would also reject a 90% share in television. I would then make the same argument.
Okay, but let's say if the tech giants would come from Germany, for example, and you have like democratic control over them, would that be better?
First of all, I would always adhere to the same principles. So we need pluralism, provider pluralism, and it doesn't matter where the companies come from. By the way, this I always say. I also always say it doesn't matter. Now we get all scared because let's just imagine if the Trump government goes further towards a dictatorship, and someone like Trump can have full control about our digital media sphere in Europe, how bad this is. But still, in terms of principle, we need to provide the same type of pluralism, completely independent whether Trump is president or whether Kamala Harris is president.
I want to ask you about if you compare the same things, right? Because basically, for example, you say 4%, if I'm not mistaken, of the streaming percentages are not the tech giants. Did I get that right?
Of the
video streaming.
No, I said if we take the overall share of video of the public service, it's 4%.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But it basically, on YouTube and everywhere else, there's also video of my daughter, of my dog, of smiling cats. So, are we not exaggerating, comparing very critical, very important democratic videos with kittens and stuff like that? Because maybe the 4% was already always the case, right? People look at videos of their kids sitting in bath, right? And it's not that big of a problem.
So I would like to answer to this question a little bit on a meta level, because we can go on here now forever. The thing is, I have done this presentation like 150 times, and wherever I go, I have heard the most outrageous and the most creative brainstorming solutions why it can't be so bad. Yeah. So I was at the public service broadcasting, and there the people told me, what a bullshit, you tell me. It's monopolies. It's not at all a monopoly. And by the way, this is so crazy, I could not make this up. YouTube is not a monopoly. I could also upload everything at Vimeo. Do you know Vimeo? Where I was thinking, okay, maybe you try to do this for a week or for a month, load up the Tagesschau at Vimeo and check out what's happening. When I was talking to the newspapers, and they also looked at the, let's say, disproportion, I was told, when I was talking about Spiegel, yes, but you cannot count this. 1 minute of Spiegel is worth 100 times more than the cat videos that you watch on YouTube. Where I would also say about why did we take usage time also as a basis for regulation for the entire broadcasting. When I was at the, also these like net activists, Mastodon people, hackers, they also invited me. And they said, when they saw, Mastodon and these things hardly exist, they said, yeah, it can't be. I tell you also why, Martin, Andree, because all the cool hackers, they are using servers that are not even seen by the, and so on and so on. So I can give one advice of this. So we can focus a lot of energy, kind of, because of course these research results create something in our brain, because they show that what is extremely important to us and what we are extremely proud of is not so big in terms of significant as we know it. It's a little bit, it's insulting. Yeah, it's insulting, by the way, for everyone who sees it. So then we have a cognitive problem, because then we want to find some model why it can't be. But I would then, if we have these kind of doubts, I'm happy to. Yeah. But what I did in the first chapter of the book, I said, okay, if we don't believe that the data measurement is right, let's look at other KPIs. Let's look at company valuations, because if that's true, we would, for instance, see like gigantic capital market valuations. We checked it with where's the ad spend going. We can look at the turnover which is reported, so we can do all these checks. And my advice would be, we can spend now a lot of time, yeah, but I would focus all of the time and energy to stop this madness.
No,
yeah,
of course. But I'm not.
That would, yeah.
No, but I'm not saying. I'm not saying
Yeah.
there's no problem, right? You don't hear me say there is a
No,
problem.
but it reminds me of other conversations.
No, that's
that
true. But let's say giving a bit of nuance is not the same as denialism, right?
Yeah,
So we can talk about nuances in the
absolutely,
data, right?
absolutely.
Okay. Let's say it is as bad as you say, right? You convinced me now, right? I can also say, well, it's our own fault, right? They made a great product. It's not a monopoly because of they sort of forced out and shot other CEOs. They just made a great product, and the newspaper were just sleeping while some of us, including myself, were screaming at them, please build a search engine. They didn't do it, and in the end, they were too late. Bad luck. This is how capitalism works. What would you say to an argument like that?
So first of all, it's I would hold back to that it's perfectly the tech narrative that's being told. That you know, also the tech narrative is there's a free internet, and then there are boring bureaucrats coming from the EU, from Brussels. They want to spoil the party. They always get on our nerves, and then they make our lives miserable and difficult. And they want to take from the people out there the wonderful, colorful, cool digital toys that we have created for them. So what's interesting is that the opposite is true. I would even hold back that the monopolies were not created by superior products, but by massive regulatory mistakes. And I can show you these mistakes. The regulatory mistakes already starts with counting them not as media. You know that these platforms are regulated as infrastructures, but they monetize like normal media. So if I take a TV station has a program, they monetize by advertising. Facebook, Instagram has a program, monetizes via advertising. So very obviously it's a regulation mistake. So we can just do one thing very easily. We can solve this problem in a tenth of a second, because we will tell the platforms tomorrow, this was a mistake. We will open the markets. We will stop the misregulation. You are infrastructures. That means you can only monetize on infrastructure level, never on content level. So problem is solved. In a minute, you would have hundreds and thousands of companies who would monetize the content. So first, misregulation. We free the markets. So it's, by the way, isn't that great? Capitalism. I'm a radical proponent here of capitalism. Capitalism is awesome. We open the markets, and this misregulation is gone. Second point, for instance, when I said, if you are infrastructures, you can't make money with content. The people who make money with content, if it's criminal, they have to take liability. Second mistake. Third mistake. Would we allow supermarkets that don't have an entry? No, we wouldn't. No, it is a regulation mistake. They can only build the monopolies on the basis of the regulation mistake. And now, last sentence, and please let me, because I think it's a cool thought. You should, do you guys know the works of Katharina Pistor? She's a legal scholar, and it's super fantastic. She shows how in the history of capitalism, how you depropriate people. So what you do in her model, it's like this. You have the field of the commons, and then you claim this field is mine, this piece of land. But it's not sufficient that you just claim it's mine, then you need lawyers who will fix it. And this is exactly what has happened, because our lawyers fixed all this nonsense, that it's not media, that they can, that they're just infrastructures, no liability, but they can monetize like normal media and so on and so on. So one point, you're 100% right, it's the mistake of our wrong regulation. We don't have free markets, we open the markets and we re-establish capitalism, because it's great if we have competition.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that point, my last point. Yeah. Why? Because we have a capitalistic system here, right? Yeah. Sort of.
Capitalism is great.
Yeah, yeah, good. Let's say that. Why is there no European Google in that sense?
No, because it's very easy, because under these circumstances, you had to win the race once. If you win the race once, you have such asymmetries that you will not even get money, by the way. Yeah? But the funniest story now is, I was holding this talk probably 150 times. And before I wrote the book, I have also my little digital company, and I thought, when I was doing like my coming out as a big tech critic, I thought I would be kind of blowing up my company, so I would get a lot of criticism from the like cool tech scene and investor scene and so on and so on, and I would be getting lots of love from journalism. And by the way, the exact opposite was true. The journalists were completely insulted, because they say, "Are you telling us that we are not important anymore?" And then I was, so they were complete angry. Even they were on one conference, they were shouting at me. Even I'm fighting for journalism, and they are shouting at me. Yeah, now it's true. Yeah, but now wait a second. So then I was invited by a friend of mine. He is one of the like most successful founders of the, in Berlin, the digital scene, and it's called Berlin to Zero. It's a big conference for like these like big tech companies and also the investors. And I was thinking, really, you want me to talk here? I thought they would like kill me if I go there. So I hold my talk. And the opposite was true. They all told me, but this we all know. We all know this. Like, it's nice that you have put this a little bit together, but for them, they were completely, and they would also say, of course, let's say if you tomorrow came with the best search engine idea, you would never get money, because the investors know the markets are closed. It's a no-fly zone for investors. And that's the most important thing, and that's why I will end with a little pun on capitalism again. If you put in my rules and you have a great idea for a search engine, you have at least a chance to get money. And because you get money and venture capital, you can even build a good search engine, and then people will not say like, "Oh my God, I was using this alternative, it's really so horrible. They built this great products in Silicon Valley." Yeah, but why do they build great products? Because of the asymmetry.
No, and I've been to hundreds of conferences, and it was all content is king, and we now know it's not completely king, right?
I'm glad you agree.
Yeah. And to comfort you, and I'll open the questions from the hall. Nobody really gets love from journalists. That's completely normal. Are there any questions here that people want to ask? Points that are being made? Do we raise hands? Although I have like gazillion questions, right? But feel free. Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the optimistic look of solving the problem, the 5 steps, who do you oversee? Like, who is behind this, the implementation of these steps? Are you think the EU? And also regarding the new platform, alternative to X, what do you think of them?
Okay, I'll answer your first question. So it's an extremely good point, and a point that is also misunderstood by many people, because most people say the EU has to do something. Now the problem is, I can tell you now 5 problems. The problem is that very clearly the EU is not responsible for the media. The media responsibility in Europe is always with the national states. So it's with Holland, Germany, and so on and so on. And even when the EU was active in this field, there was coming a lot of resistance where the national states were like, "Oh my God, the EU has to go out." By the way, by asking this question, you put me in a lot of personal suffering. Why? Because that is the case. I have spent the last years in Germany to try to make a change. And I can tell you that I have completely, like 100%, it's a complete failure. I achieved really nothing. And I spent a lot of time. For instance, we have what's called Interstate Media Treaty. We have made a proposal already 1 year ago, and I was everywhere in the media, and we wrote it for them, and there's even a website for it, it's like mstv2go.de. We were like kind of spoon-fed the whole thing. They would just have to put it in, and it was not resulting in anything. So, why? Because I give you an example. So, or we could spend so much time now here. So the problem is, and I think you have this similarly in different countries. It will be, I don't know how it's exactly in the Netherlands, but of course, in the past, and particularly in Germany after National Socialism, we wanted to have pluralism and so on, so that in Germany, for instance, that there's a kind of checks and balances and a division of power, so that, as an example, in Germany, the federal states, the 16 little states, not on the federal level, but the states themselves, they have the responsibility, for instance, for media content and also media concentration. That's why 80% of my points, 4 of these 5 points and other points, we could have done with the interstate media contract. But can you imagine now? Yeah, it's completely crazy if you think about this. As in Germany, the federal little states are responsible for content. If there's a problem with the platform X, the Bavarian media, whatever authority writes a letter to Elon Musk, yeah, and of course Elon Musk will smoke this, yeah, because he doesn't care. So that means that there's not sufficient competency on this in this little states, and they don't have, yeah, so they don't have the power to do it. That is why you now got to know me a little, because I can be also quite confrontative, and I have told them basically also very plainly, if you didn't manage to now get this job done in 12 years, you should hand over the responsibility, hand it over to either the Berlin or to the EU, yeah, that the EU takes care, yeah. But also, if we now think about this, even if now, first of all, they will also get insulted, by the way. No? They don't like to hear this kind of thing, if you understand what I mean. Yeah? But then even, let's say I convinced them, it would take years, because it's constitutionally in Germany, it's the clear responsibility of the federal states to tackle these problems. So that is the horrible thing that we are in, because we have this, and I would assume we have similarly complex checks and balances in the different member states to protect the media, which of course is the reason why the big tech companies are using our weakness against us. So that's why, to end with a funny line, I think we have to do it from Holland. Yeah, yeah. No, but what I really mean, maybe no, but maybe we have to, we have to wake up in the member states. So now here there's a lot of people listening to these topics, and just imagine, several member states would maybe align, because we have the same problems everywhere. Yeah, and maybe we can then find a way to find a harmonized EU approach.
Okay, are any more questions?
The second question, yes. Alternative,
Yeah.
I will be very fast because it's an easy question. So in the book, there's also a history of the boycotts that haven't worked. By the way, I'm super proud of the Netherlands, because you guys, apparently now, a lot of you guys have moved away from X and Blue Sky, and it's far, far cooler what you guys have done than what we achieved in Germany. Yeah, so be proud. But the thing is, I don't want to spoil the party, but I've spoiled the party anyways. So, no, what we saw in Germany is like lots of people left and then they came back. Yeah, so it's a big part of the book that the thing is that the big tech companies need to live in our illusion that there is free choice and open markets. But this is only in a, let's say, for the most people out there, it's not really the case. And that's extremely hard to boycott these platforms, and because they are monopolistic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's have the last question from yeah. Because we need to close off in the end. We can do this for hours, right?
I I could go on.
Yes.
In the government, a lot of people are supporting due prominence, like supporting journalism on tech platforms and giving them a prominent position. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't understand it 100%. They are supporting.
Due prominence is you have public information journalism, and you have to make regulatory rules. So the tech platforms has to distribute or make that content prominently visible.
For me, I know. For me, a good answer would take probably 10 minutes. So how do I explain this in an easy way? You will see that my narrative is very different from the ones that you hear out there. My narrative is very easy. Media monopolies are undemocratic and unconstitutional. I measured them. Shit, we have media monopolies. We break them up. The nice thing about it, nobody can move out. You can't argue with this. So the problem with other tech critical discourses is that they are very easy to blow up. I give you one example, and I could spend now a lot of time on it, but for me the fake news topic is one of these examples. Because I would say it's very, very hard to prove, also in an environment of free speech, free opinion, what really is legal and what is not legal. So that is why, by the way, tech companies love this discourse, because they always win. Yeah, because potentially in 9 of 10 cases it will come out that because we have a protection of free speech, which is important, that cases which are brought forward were not even legal in the first place, and then they can put up the whole censorship thing and so on and so on. They say the evil states, and they want to replace the states. They want to take away democracy, and they want to put themselves at its place, if you understand what I mean. And that's also why I don't like this discourse so much, because it will completely play into the hands of Elon Musk and Trump and so on, and they will say it's the deep state forcing the platforms to show certain things. You have the full censorship topic and so on and so on, and I think we are losing a big part of the discourse on the entire censorship and fake news problem, because that's the dark woods where big tech wants to have us. They are going to kill us in this woods, because we will have too many cases where in a way we have a bad or a wrong case, and then they will always say, look, these idiots from the EU, look, here you have the victims, this like poor old man, he was just making a joke, and now you want to put him into prison and so on and so on. So that's, by the way, I think it's a massive problem, because if you look at the overall attention, for instance, also, if you look now in journalism, what is journalism writing about? 90% of the problem is about hate speech, fake news, and not about monopolies. The monopoly thing would be easy. Monopolies are anti-constitutional, we measured, these are monopolies, we break them up. Yeah. You can't, how will you argue against this? This is a fact. Every fake news you can argue, judges will take 6 months to find out if a statement was allowed or is not allowed, yeah. Whereas this argument, you are done in 3 minutes.
Last question, because we need to go.
I think Martin deserves a beer. I think we
last question, because I am just curious. You can answer very shortly. Did you talk with the people from Google, the Amazons, the Twitters? What did they say about this book?
I can tell you that they take me very seriously, because now they don't come anymore when I'm somewhere. Okay. It's very rare. No, but you have to consider the people who work in Europe for these companies. They are what I would call stormtroopers. They are just, they have no power, they have nothing to say, they get completely brainwashed by Silicon Valley. The people who make the decisions are in Silicon Valley anyways, and they will take, I was now in Brussels. It was very funny, because I did my, you know, we're just sharing, we're just, you know, open community and so on and so on. And there was one guy from EMEA, head of governance from London, from Google, and he said exactly the same thing. And even they were saying, oh, you just say exactly the same things as Martin just said. So you will not get anything out of them. No. You will not, it's completely useless. But the last thing, what we should fight against. We have seen, and I mean, maybe take this again with you. My interpretation of the tech companies is that they are plainly, clearly anti-democratic. They want to basically run down the democratic states, and they want to take over the power. Maybe you can say, you don't follow this argumentation, maybe it's the interpretation is too tough on you, but I would say the most friendly interpretation that's possible is that these companies are absolutely not democracy compliant. If you intentionally break laws, if you lie consistently to officials, if you have these like completely non-compliant ways of tax avoidance, you are definitely an entity that is not democracy compliant. So I would compare this with, you know these like these gangs like bandidos and so on and so on. They think they can do what they want. They take things away from other people and so on and so on. So we should not allow these people anymore to any kind of political meeting with politics unless they can prove that they respect democracy and that they are 100% democracy compliant. This should be the basic condition, because then we can save all this oxygen on, yeah, we're just an open platform and we're doing good and all this bullshit that's anyways like remote controlled from Silicon Valley. The full democracy compliance must be the condition even for participating in political circles. Because everywhere I am going, in like higher level politics, they are everywhere. Like if you see, there was now a request from German government on how many times they meet with Chancellor Scholz, how many times they meet. It's like hundreds of meetings they have with them, where I'm saying, how is it possible that the politicians meet companies which are definitely not democracy compliant?
Mm-hmm. That's the interpretation I share. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.